How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with Alex and Ryan. Today we're talking about Jason Dominguez, and this guy is a freaking workhorse. He's a really good kid, hits avocados, great work ethic, and we think he's going to be a star for the Yankees as a rookie, basically, in 2025. I think Dominguez probably slated to play in center field. Cody Bellinger could play in left, or, most people believe that will be the alignment in the outfield for the Yankees. And, Dominguez has a unique ability because he's, how old is he again? 21 years old. And the fact that I've heard people writing this man off is astounding to me. A 21-year-old kid. He's had some injury issues, absolutely. But I'm not going to label a 21-year-old kid injury prone because he's too young for that. You know what I mean? He's too young to have that moniker. If he was like 25 or 26, yeah, we could argue that maybe he's a little injury prone. But he has years before he gets to a point where his body can't recover at an easy rate. And I do think that going into this upcoming season as him as a primary starter, we know what happens when Dominguez gets hot. We know what happens offensively when he's seeing the ball well and in a good rhythm and flow. This is one of the best offensive players in our farm system, was for a long time. Before that oblique injury last year, Ryan, despite the fact he was coming off rehab from Tommy John surgery, the guy was insane. He was dominating. He couldn't even throw. He was a DH. He was dominating with that elbow, obviously still being rehabilitated. Then he had the oblique injury, came back, was a little bit slow, and then picked it up again towards the end of the season before he got promoted. So, everything to me says this guy could be a legitimate star. Ryan, give me your take, your insights into Dominguez and why you think the underlying metrics or even just the blatant metrics suggest this could be the case.
Yeah, no, when you talk about Jason Dominguez's data and his minor league data, it's extremely impressive. He grades out as firmly above average in terms of swing decisions. He doesn't chase a lot, and he's really aggressive on pitches he should be swinging at. Hittable pitches in the zone, mistakes that pitchers are making, he's going to crush those. He hits the ball extremely hard. His 90th percentile exit velocity is one of the best marks in all of professional baseball at around 108 miles an hour. He averaged over 90 miles an hour in terms of average exit velo. And again, he makes a good amount of contact. He doesn't have a lot of outstanding contact issues. He doesn't have concerns there. You don't have concerns about his ability to make contact. You don't have concerns about his ability to recognize pitches in and out of the strike zone. You don't have concerns about his ability to hit the ball hard. And you don't have concerns about his ability to run the bases well. So we're talking about a player who is extremely complete in all facets of the game. He does an extremely good job of doing damage on contact. He does an extremely good job of making contact. He does an extremely good job of making good swing decisions. The things that he has to work on are mostly on a defensive side of the ball. Whether he's a left fielder or a center fielder for the 2025 Yankees remains to be seen, but I think ultimately he will find a way to settle into one of the positions he ends up at and be a competent defensive outfielder. I'm not sure about above average, but I think I'm just looking for competent here. And then when we talk about some notable issues that I could find in his game, he does hit a lot of ground balls. He's going to have to fix that. But ground ball rates are actually something that can improve for a hitter with age, unlike other tools where some of them tend to regress with age. Dominguez is someone who he hits the ball so hard. He does so much contact. He has such a great work ethic. There's a lot of talent and really good character traits here too. And the equation for me when it comes to becoming a star, it's talent, it's health, and it's character. Those three things, when put together, result in a star caliber player. You need to be, really talented. There's a baseline level of talent. I know hard work is important, and that's part of the equation here, but you have to be able to do certain things, right? Like hard work can't fix a guy who's throwing 85 miles an hour, right? 85 is just not going to play at this level. Working hard isn't going to change if you can only hit a ball 102 miles an hour. Jason Dominguez has all the talent in the world. He has an incredible work ethic. And, it's just a matter of health for me. If he's healthy, I think he'll be great. We've seen that really the only stretches in which Jason Dominguez's play is disrupted is when he's not healthy. Because when he's healthy, he's dominant. And when he's dominant, man, he's hitting for a high average. It's hitting 300. It's, getting on base at a high clip. Yes, there's some power there, and I don't want to dismiss how much power he has, but this is not a guy who's going to be strike out 30% of the time, strike out 32% of the time, and pray for the home run ball. No, this is a guy who's going to try and hit, 270, 280, somewhere in that range, get on base at that 35, 36% clip, and then provide enough power to slug, around 450. That kind of player is what Jason Dominguez could become at the big league level, and if you're getting an 800 OPS with his his speed and his, hopefully progressing defense, we're talking about a really good ball player, a 3, 4, maybe 5 WAR player. And my player comparison here, and this is a little bit of an obscure one, and, not one that I think fits his body type, but more so what I hope his career ends up becoming. Dude, when you talk about switch hitting outfielders or center fielders in recent Yankee history, or somewhat
Aaron
recent
Hicks.
Yankee history, I was going to go with, look, we've had him on the pod. It was about 2 years ago. Bernie Williams, man. Bernie Williams is the guy. Like, I look at Bernie Williams' career and I say, if Jason Dominguez can be as good as Bernie Williams, it would be an overwhelming success. That shouldn't be the bar for success, but that would be an overwhelming success.
He's a Hall of Famer.
And,
yeah.
I mean, he's like I really do think there are a lot of traits there. Again, with the power, the plate discipline, and the solid, not dominant speed. This is a player who could become, I think, a very good player for a very long time. And it's just a matter of health. That's really all it's a matter of. Just stay healthy, my man.
Absolutely, it is a matter of health, and being 21 helps with getting over the hump there. And I'll say this, I mean, even Spencer Jones had Tommy John surgery. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of young guys coming up through the ranks in every team that has had Tommy John surgery. A lot of pitchers that have come back from it and obviously continued to have solid careers. So, I'm not concerned about that for an outfielder by any means. It was just it's a freak accident. It doesn't. I mean, Shohei Ohtani put together a freaking insane season rehabbing from Tommy John surgery offensively. I don't care if Jason Dominguez has a noodle for an arm if he hits 30 plus homers a year. That's kind of where I sit at this point. Just catch the damn ball. Just catch the ball. I don't care how strong your arm is. Just catch the damn ball. Showcase your athleticism in the outfield and be a good offensive player. That's all I care about. No one gives a shit about Juan Soto's lack of defense, even though he's one of the worst defensive outfielders in the game, because this guy is an absolute horse offensively. Now, Dominguez will probably never be the play discipline that Soto has, but I do think that power-wise, with that switch-hitting Batman, it's a nightmare, for opposing teams. He's a nightmare to face against, because I do think he could eventually get to a point where he is leading off, in the future. That is something I do think is possibility for him. And one of the best things about Jason Dominguez, Ryan, isn't the fact that he's just so much upside here. It's the fact that he's pre-arbitration. And how many pre-arbitration players the Yankees have? Austin Wells, Anthony Volpe, Jason Dominguez, Luis Gil. How many more starters can you ask for to be pre-arb? Right? Most of the Yankees' money is tied up in old players and bad contracts, right? DJ LeMahieu's getting paid $15 million a year. They owe $16 million a year to Aaron Hicks and Anthony Rizzo this season. They owe how much? I mean, I'm not going to say Giancarlo Stanton's a bad contract because of what he did in the postseason. I think we can kind of allow him the grace of, being still very valuable as a DH, one of the best DHs in the game. So I'm not going to label him a bad contract, but they're still paying him $22 million a year in luxury tax salary, so it adds up. They have a lot of money just dead. Next year, they have a lot of money coming off the books. $16 million from Aaron Hicks and Rizzo, right? DJ LeMahieu's 1 year away from being gone and sayonara'd off this roster, right? There is a lot of bad money coming off the books over the next 2 seasons, and the Yankees are going to be pre-arbitration still. Some of these guys are at least early stages arbitration. So I'm pretty excited about what Jason Dominguez means for the future of this team and the transition to a young player. And Ryan, let me just point out that the flexibility he offers you next offseason, when Cody Bellinger has a player option, if he plays well and he has a good season, he wants to get a long-term deal, and he opts out of that player option, you want to know who the Yankees turn their attention to? Kyle freaking Tucker. And Kyle Tucker is not possible unless you have another pre-arbitration starting outfielder manning one of those positions. And you could put Kyle Tucker in left if you want to, keep Jason in center. You can do whatever you want with him. He's a very solid defensive piece. One of the better, obviously an elite offensive player, but he's also a really good defensive player. So, Ryan, tell me about that. Just the fact of the cost of Dominguez, what doors it opens for the Yankees long term here.
Yeah, I personally think that when we talk about the Yankees, we talk about their long-term future, cost-controlled players will change everything. Cost-controlled players opens the door. I think one thing that they had during the baby bomber window that they didn't take enough advantage of when we were talking about 2017 and 2018 was investing in getting star players because you had so many cost-controlled players. Now, granted, a lot of those cost-controlled players flamed out pretty quickly. Gary Sanchez, I think, was, gets a lot of criticism, but at least he was, aggregated over from 2017 to 2021, a major league starting caliber catcher and an above average one in some seasons, a not so great one in other ones, but nonetheless a major league starting caliber catcher and wasn't costing a lot of money. Glaber, people could say whatever they want about him, but during his tenure with the Yankees, cost controlled, above average second baseman. But yet look at Andujar. It's 1 year, shoulder surgery, never the same again. Severino's another guy where like the peak was super high, but it was 2 years of that peak, and then a lot of injury prone and not great seasons after that. The Yankees need this core to provide them with consistent production, consistent cost-controlled production. Can Jason Dominguez be a 3-WAR guy this year? Can Austin Wells be a 4-WAR guy this year? Can Volpe be a 3.5 to 4-WAR guy this year? That's not superstar. I'm not asking for Hall of Fame, go out and win an MVP. No, that's 3, 4, WAR. All right, cool. Schmidt, can you give me, 160 innings and a 3.5 ERA? Check. Heel, can you give me 150 innings and a 3.8 ERA? Check. Right? Like that stuff adds up because then you can start investing in other parts of your roster and you start becoming less expensive. And you look at, Ben Rice. Ben Rice, can you give me a 115 WRC plus and passable defense at first base? You can? Check. I'm not paying a first baseman. Hey, Jazz, can you keep being as good as you were last year? Check. Cool. Arbitration. Volpe, we just talked about him. He's still cheap. Can I have some of my young guns in the minor leagues? Can they become relievers or starters for me in the near future? Can Clayton Beeter become an above average major league reliever? Check. Don't got to pay another reliever. Can Will Warren become a major league starter and or reliever? Kind of like a Michael King situation. Check. Another reliever I don't need to pay. The Yankees need to have a consistent core of players that are developing inside the organization who eventually can provide, again, cheap value. It's all about cheap value because then, as you mentioned, with Kyle Tucker, with any big-time free agent, the only long-term deals on the Yankees books, and I talk about long-term as like 5 years plus, are Judge and Fried. Cole is up after 4 years, Rodon's up after 4 years, Stan's up after 3 years, LeMahieu's up after 2 years. That's a lot of money off the books. A lot of money off the books. So when you start fitting in these long-term deals back into the equation, the Yankees in the next 2 years-ish are going to start saying, we got a lot of short-term money. That's what we have, a lot of short-term money, 2 big-term, long-term deals. And then, you also fast forward 2 years, and Judge is now a guy who's got 5 years left on his deal, and so on and so forth. So, again, it's all about just being able to generate enough cost-controlled talent, and that's not counting Stroman's going to come off the books this year. The Yankees won't owe Cody Bellinger money next year if he plays decent baseball. So those things do matter. Now, granted, other players are going to enter arbitration. Volpe will, Wells will in those years, and that'll offset some of the value, but I doubt either of those players in ARB1 or ARB2 will make $20-something million. So there's that. And the luxury tax will also always go up. Like this year, the first luxury tax threshold is $241 million. And, it's going to go up to, I think, 244 next year. The CBA, when they have the CBA agreement and they redetermine what that's going to look like, I'm sure it'll go up again. It'll be like 250 for the first threshold. It starts becoming a lot easier to duck under certain thresholds. I'm not the type of guy where, like, I'm going to sit here and tell you, I can't wait for I love talking about the Yankees dipping under the payroll and this and that, but let's be honest, this is not a sport in which you can, where it's spend all the money you want and you pay no penalties. You're going to lose draft picks, you're going to pay extreme taxes, stuff like that. So, Alex, cost-controlled talent, it might allow us to run, let's say, a $270 million payroll in the years where, let's say not 270, let's say it's 250. Right. And then by the time Judge and Cole are older guys or off the payroll or whatever, in Cole's case, that, the team's maybe not as competitive. You can get it back to, you can reset the luxury tax, get your draft picks, reload, and get back into a contention window. That's what the Yankees do very well. That's what Brian Cashman has done very well, to his credit. They've never been out of a contention window really in my lifetime. So if they get the job done this year, we'll look back on this a lot more favorably. But again, if they can keep, and part of that is also, again, just developing young players. So, Dominguez isn't just a fun guy who we've talked about for years. Dominguez is a guy who can represent a new era of Yankee baseball. A guy who can, again, doesn't really have to become a superstar to do this. It just has to be a pretty good player so that the Yankees can have more cost-controlled talent. And again, just pay young superstars when they become available, and hopefully you extend your window a little bit longer. That's the goal. That should be the goal, and that's the whole point of having good player development.
Yep, absolutely. And, you talk about when Judge gets a little bit older, eventually in 2028, and when Judge is definitely headed towards the back end of his prime at this point, if not already at the back end of his prime, he'll be DHing for us, or he'll be playing first base. And you want who's going to be off the roster? Stanton. And that's $22 million back, and that'll basically pay for Judge's contract, most of it at least. So I do think that you Yankees have structured their future pretty well, not to mention they may start pushing the luxury tax thresholds. They may start pushing them higher because teams are going to be spending more. Hopefully, we'll see what happens with the CBA in a couple of years. But like, there's going to be some reason for pushing those taxes because it's limiting teams from spending, and then it forces them to get creative with deferrals and stuff like that. You don't want teams to defer money. You want them to be more competitive now. The next CBA is going to change that rule. It's going to be more like, what if we push the luxury tax thresholds higher and we remove deferrals, or at least you can't defer. You can defer up to a percentage of what a player earns, right? You can't defer the whole freaking contract like Ohtani's and then just open up money for the future. So, that's kind of where I would say like things will change, and the Yankees are structured well to handle any future financial issues with like declining players because a lot of them are young, and they're only declining players they have are, obviously Stanton, Cole, and I wouldn't even say Cole's declining. I think he just had an off season with the injury in spring training. Judge just won an MVP. Like, they're in a good spot right now. Stanton's still very capable. We saw him do it. He still ranks in the 100th, 99th percentile in most slugging categories. So, yeah, the Yankees are in a decent spot right now. Dominguez helps that tremendously. But, guys, really excited to hear your perspectives on Dominguez, what you think he can do as a rookie and long-term prospects for him. Always happy to get your thoughts. Make sure to like and subscribe. 5-star review on Apple and Spotify, my friends. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.
Perfect.